Good. Thank you, Lene. While it seems it takes a bit of time to get my presentation opened, I have filled in a lot of videos. I think that's always a good way to kind of like sit in a room and take you a bit closer to the field by something that's a bit more living. So trying to do some swimming while the presentation is loading. My name is Ole Green, and den kører ikke. Yeah, yeah. So my name is Ole Green, and as Lene introduced, I am a farmer. I started my career as a farmer, grown up on a farm in the western part of Denmark on a very sandy soil. It's primarily an area where there's either pig production or milk production as the two main ways of doing farming. For my personal motivation, it's always been looking at soil and being kind of like challenged a bit on how we've treated the soils, treated our lands from a more sustainable perspective. And that have through the last more or less 25 years driven how we could do different development practices. This has also led me into different educational paths, and that's also why I think Lene was challenging a bit. So have a background as both a mechanical engineer, an agronomist, and a PhD within biosystems engineering to fill in kind of like different levels of knowledge to the area. Today, and for basically quite some years now, my wife and I are managing the family farm, where it's both land from my birth farm as well as from my wife's family farm that we have in our small family farm called Benfarm today. It is a small farm, also from a Danish context, but what has driven us is to look at how this beach sand can actually make an income and create value. And that has been one of the major motivations for us to see doing something different than just growing cereals, which is the dominant in our area. So let's see if now try to do. Yeah. Where is it? But it seems to be on. Yes. So fitting quite well in for the last. Sorry. Oh yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Basically, for the last 8 years, we have been experimenting with different varieties of strip cropping in our field. The basic idea comes from this on how we can increase biodiversity in fields to make a more resilient system. And when opening dialogue with Lene a few years back, we saw more also the research perspective in this, because from our farm perspective, we of course are trying to do it because we believe this makes good things for our land. But what we also can see is there's a lot of knowledge lacking within this domain, and that's also the reason why we've entered into this partnership and partner up with the AllEcoSys project. So first, I know the text is in Danish. I hope you'll cope with that. I'll try to make sure you will get that also in English. The vision from our side have been to create both a robust and a diverse cropping system. And as you can see from the video running here, the fields look much different than our neighboring field, where you would see monocrop cultures of cereals, maize, grasslands to support the animal production. From our perspective, what we basically try to do is taking a crop rotation and moving it inside the field and combining it with also crops that have a higher yield potential, income potential for us as a smaller farm. For us, the mission is not only to make it reliable and robust and profitable for us, but also to share our learnings and experiences and also getting inspired. Beside working with it as the land, I would also say working with high value crops is of course something that typically has the need of a lot of manual work. And as you can see in the video here, we are also using automation to a large degree, because with an organic farm where mechanical weeding is needed, mulching, field tasks, that takes up a lot of hours of uniform repetitive work tasks. And I would say not that I love robots, I just think they're more practically than a tractor, where there's a lot of boring hours spent in a tractor, and that's why we see the value in using robots. The system that we've designed is a strip cropping system, where the way we do it today is we combine our berry bushes, which is our high value crop. We have a number of different varieties of that. I'll come back to that. But the core of the system is that within each strip, as you basically can see on both sides of the robot, there's a row of berry bushes. And then in the land in between, we do the different rotations. So in the main land of our fields, we try to combine a crop like peas that has one way of working by also fixating nitrogen by itself. We have the cereals, which is used for consume, so basically your muesli and flour. And then grass that is partly used both for sales, but also to make sure that we add extra carbon to the land. So basically it's used as a green manure. The strips, so the distance between the berry bushes is 7 meters, and that makes our robot of roughly 5 meters able to work with strips of 3 meter. That's actually the cropped area in between the berry bushes. We are located here in the very western part, only a few kilometers from the west coast. So I think we had visitors also from the partnership earlier this year, and it is a windy site, and that also challenged when we choose our crops and our varieties. It is a rough environment, and we can have late autumn or late spring frosts, which is also challenging for some of the varieties, which is not a typical area where we would do berries in Denmark. One of the fields which is being used very much for the observations we do in this joint project consists of a number of rows of berries. In that, we are combining two varieties of black currants, solbær, and gooseberries as stikkelsbær. So what we've done in this field is we are combining these 4 different varieties of berries with a number of different varieties and species of cereals and arable crops as shown before. In the lower part of the corner, as you can see, we have some grass in between. This is a lower land, so more peat soil, though it's not in that, but a higher carbon content. So we have occasionally suffered more from waterlogging, and that's where we build in. So instead of berry bushes in this area, we've made a small walnut plantage that was just established this winter. So that's, again, it's a more long-term investment that will still be maybe 6 to 8 years before we'll start harvesting of these. So from working with annual crops and start looking at establishing a more permaculture, that takes time. And that was actually where, together with Lene, we looked at, when we established this specific field, we would try and do some more what's called statistically relevant field design. So basically, when we designed our mono and mixed crop, then we divided the field into 6 blocks, where in block A we had the monoculture, so there was no mixing of the different varieties of berries in the block A, and in block B we had then shifting from the black currant to gooseberries and also the varieties of that. So that was part of when we established it, and then hopefully to see some of these effects. And that means that when we look across the field today from an autumn photo here, that's where we can see these blocks, and this gives us a fantastic opportunity in the coming years to see how this way of diversifying not only our annual crops but also our permanent So what you can see in practice is that we have these rows. They are roughly, one bed here is 50-meter long. And then we have this, what we call it, the fire belt. So that's a mode also, so that we make sure that if we have, we don't have direct contact kind of like from one line to the next. There's always challenges on how much that could be done. One of the things we're working with Simon also in evaluating is, as you can see, the robot is doing a mulching. So we keep the land next to the berries. We keep that dark during the whole of the spring to stress out the weed. And then as soon as the berries start maturing, then we stop and leave the soil growing. So if you would see it today, it's basically completely covered in grass from